Due to the ignorance of our host, parental discretion is advised.
Welcome back to How Did It Get So Good? My guest tonight, I've been trying to have this gentleman in for years now.
Yeah, it's probably like a year and a half.
A year and a half at least. Well, it was, so just to give a little bit of a background story. The first time I saw you, you opened for Whitney Cummings.
Yep.
Whitney Cummings. And I remember going like, this guy is hilarious, first off. And I started following you. And then all of a sudden I knew that you were from, because you never know whether they're from somewhere else. That they come with the, so they come with a comedian or not. And then I heard that you were from here, and I was like, oh, I gotta have this gentleman on the podcast. I used to have a podcast with a friend. We used to have that name. And it was more of a two blue collar workers, and we'll get together and podcast every week. And in 5 years, we haven't missed one weekend.
Oh, wow.
So we have 274 episodes.
Wow.
Without missing one. But that's just I'm just flexing on you a little bit. Okay? I'm just flexing. This is not my first rodeo.
I've actually done 500 weeks of my podcast.
Oh, damn. I'm like, God dang it. So I've been wanting to have you here forever, and then now that I changed completely what we had going on before, I was like, okay, now I'm making this a little more personal, because what we had used to be more of a man cave kind of thing. Yeah. So thank you for coming.
No problem.
You're making my day. How are you, first off?
Doing good.
Yeah.
Traveling, very tired.
Yeah.
My sleep schedule is finally starting to get somewhat set, where I'm sleeping 8 hours a night for multiple nights in a row, which rarely happens. So I'm feeling good.
Nice. How is it to come back? So you were born in Brigham City?
Yeah, so I'm born in Berger, 33 years ago. Nice. A beautiful Monday, March 18th, 1991, Brigham City Regional Hospital.
Oh, so it was just your birthday just happened then?
Yeah, it was last month. Just turned 33. I'm in my Jesus year.
Yeah,
I hope it doesn't end the same way.
This is all the time we have. Thank you so much for that.
Oh, no.
How old do you think I am?
Oh, I'm terrible.
It doesn't matter.
Listen, okay, also, I taught middle school for decades, so the students would be like, you're like 65? And I'm like, no, they're like 50. I was like, I hate my life. I'm going to say, because you asked, you're probably 41.
Wow.
Am I right?
I'll be 42 in May 1st.
There we go.
Dude, that's pretty on the nuts.
If you just ask me, like, if someone just says, hey, how old is that person? I couldn't tell you.
Let's go look at some homeless people. But how many you guess?
Since you asked me, I'm like, okay, he's probably older than he looks.
Oh,
so because you asked, I use my deductive reasoning.
Somebody's calling my bluff.
Listen, I'm going to be on Survivor or Big Brother one day, and I'm really good at reading people.
Yeah.
I did an online version of Survivor where we play, like, basically Survivor, but on Zoom.
Is that even a thing?
Yeah. We play Survivor, but on Zoom. Uh-huh. And I did okay, but what I did really well was I clocked every alliance in the game, and like when the game was over, everyone was like looking back through the notes that they had accumulated, and they're like, Ryan knew everything that was happening. I was like, yes, but I didn't have the social capital to leverage it, but I had great reads. So I'm pretty good at like deductive reasoning and being like, okay, and piecing things together. So when you asked that, I was like, okay, because he looks like he's in his early 30s, he's probably 10
do I?
years older. Yeah, I thought you were my age.
That's what I'm talking about, man.
I genuinely thought you were my age.
Oh, dude.
And so, but then when you asked, I'm like, okay, so he's older.
The majority of the friends that I hang out with, they're like a lot younger. So I'm like, oh, you freaking,
you're the old guy.
You're the old guy. You're this, you're that. But I usually, nobody can actually get it, which is funny. Because I have been told, see, my problem is I've been doing construction for so long. And for the longest, and I was just telling this to somebody else. And for the longest time, I never cared for wearing sunglasses. So if I squint, I look like I'm 67 because I've been doing this for years. And I just recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, I'm like, oh, maybe if I wear glasses, it will help me so I don't look so old.
Yes.
And obviously the hair is falling off. You saw it, but that's whatever. So I saw you at Whitney Cummings, and I was like, oh man, this guy is something else.
She's great. I worked. Was it here at Wise Guys or was it Kingsbury
it's
Hall?
Wise Guys.
Okay, yeah. So I opened with her here
Yeah.
at Wise Guys, and we had a great weekend. 6 shows, super fun. It was my biggest. Like that month, I opened for Whitney Cummings at downtown Wise Guys, and I opened for Taylor Tomlinson. In the same month. It was a really good month for Ryan. Really, like the 2 biggest names I've ever worked with in the same month. But yeah, then Whitney, she was just so cool, and like at the end of the weekend, she goes, "If you ever want to like open for me, just like let me know." So I moved to North Carolina, and I just texted. I was like, "Hey Whitney, I saw you're coming to Durham. Can I open for you?" She goes, "Do you want to do all the Carolinas?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do actually."
Jesus.
And then she texted me later being like, "Actually, do you want to do the one in Utah too?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And
but that was the theater.
yeah, so that
Okay,
was the
okay.
Kingsbury
Yeah, yeah.
Theater, Kingsbury Hall. And so it was like just like that weekend that you must have seen me, I was like this is the start of something cool, and like things snowballed, and it was really fun.
That's so
She's
crazy.
super nice. She's so nice.
Really?
She's so nice.
She's becoming like she has become kind of like the Joe Rogan of the female character.
Maybe. I'm
talking about a well-known comedian, right? She's a great businesswoman, and on top of everything, she is freaking hilarious.
Yeah, I don't know about that comparison per se, but I know her podcast is super successful.
Yeah.
Like she has like a lot of like TV and film credits and stuff. And then she's going back out on tour again this fall.
Yeah.
So like she's doing really well for I don't know like that one, because I mean Rogan's podcast is like the most listened to in the world. So it's like I don't know if that's like a 1-to-1 comparison.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed working with her, and like one of the cool things about Whitney was like I did my set. I did like 15-20 minutes, and then she did her over an hour, and then she did like a live meet and greet on the stage for like 45 minutes or an hour, and then as we're walking back to the green room, she goes, "Hey, on this one joke, you should do this word instead." Like 2 hours later, she had remembered to give me like help. That I was like, it was like she didn't have to do that, but she was like, it would make the joke punchier. I was thinking it when you were performing it. If you flipped this word, I was like, oh, thank you. And like she remembered 2 hours after doing her show and meeting 1,500 fans or whatever. Like it was just like.
And 2 people died after you said that joke, right?
Oh, really?
No.
I wasn't paying attention. I just pay attention to my own world. No, but she's just super nice, super thoughtful, and like I adore her.
I think it was the last time that she was. So the last time she was here was at the theater.
At Kingsbury.
So the one before was
at Wise Guys.
Okay,
yeah.
I think
that was in February 2021. So it was like post-pandemic. Theaters weren't open.
Okay.
So a lot of the bigger names that do theaters were at doing the club circuit.
I think my I used to be married back then. I used to be married, and my ex-wife bought her a slut shirt. The SLUT.
Oh, SLUT. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we were there, and she gave it to her, and I don't know. I can't remember if she put it on or not.
She probably did.
She
probably did.
And then I follow your socials, and all of a sudden you were leaving, and I was like, oh no, why is he gonna leave? This is crazy. But is obviously you would be the right person to ask. Is Utah just to like it'll carry you just to a certain level?
Yeah,
and then it's time to move on per se.
There is a ceiling.
I don't know if I'm saying it right.
No. There's the scene has a ceiling.
Okay.
So like you hit a certain point. Like there are some comics like Pete Jr. He tours pretty regularly most weekends, based out of here in Utah. Andy Gold does touring a little bit. Rodney Norman, Steve Solberg. Like there are some comedians that have like stayed here that like they have their dry bar special. Like they headline the Wise Guys regularly. They open, but then they also go like, do their own thing. But there is a certain ceiling you hit that like, and it's because we're so geographically landlocked that it's like. Denver and Vegas are like our closest scenes in Boise, but they're like 5, 6, 7 hours away.
Yeah.
So whereas I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, and within a 5-hour radius was 20 different metro areas. Because you can go like Raleigh, there's Greensboro, Charlotte, Wilmington, Asheville, Richmond, Virginia Beach, DC, and then going south, there's Greenville and Columbia and Charleston, and that's just like a 4-hour drive.
Yeah.
So like there's just more opportunities for stage time and road work. And then after doing that for about 2 years, I moved to New York. So I've been in New York for a little over a year, trying to make it work.
So when you say let's get this a little closer to you.
Oh,
Just squeeze it here, just down.
Okay.
There you go. Just and lift it just a little. I just don't want to miss anything that you're saying. There you go.
Great.
So when we're talking about opportunities, do you have opportunities as the number of clubs that you have at the certain city, or?
Well, it just depends on each scene. Like for me, like when I moved to Raleigh, there's a Good Nights, which is a helium brand. So there's 9 heliums across the country. Good Nights is one of them. And then there's an Improv, the Raleigh Improv, which is owned by the same people who own like the Hollywood Improv, the Brea Improv, like Tempe Improv, all those people. So that's on the same family. So like getting into those networks can help because now I'm the club booker for the Improv. Knows me. And so, and like I opened up for Michael Palisak at Good Nights. And he was like, hey, you're super funny. Do you want to do Greensboro and Greenville with me because you're not too far away? And I said, great. So then he brought me on the road as a feature to go to these different clubs. So the fact that I was in that area gave me that opportunity where if I was living here in Utah, he wouldn't have invited me to go on the road and open with them in those cities. And that's what a lot of comics, like, they buddy up, or comic goes, hey, like do you want to do, like, I have friends who like used to live in, one of my friends used to live in Indy, and there was a major comic that when she would come into the Midwest, so Indy, Louisville, Columbus, Lexington, Chicago, Detroit, that she was her regional opener. So like moving to a different scene where there's like other scenes nearby gives you a little more opportunity to get noticed, get seen, get work, and move up in the world.
So besides Michael and Whitney, who else that we would know per se? Because obviously there's a bunch.
Like that brought me on the road. Just those two.
Okay.
But like as far as like opening, like Taylor Tomlinson, Fortune Feimster, Christopher Titus, Godfrey.
Oh, nice.
So like between the Improv and Good Nights and Wise Guys, I've gotten to open up for like a lot of cool people, which has like helped me like see their stuff and be like, oh, how do I get better? Like I hung out with Cristela Alonso the weekend I hosted for her. She has 2 Netflix specials, and she just gave me like such good insight, and like just like being in the green room with them and like just soaking all that in and just like talking shop. Like Godfrey like wanted to work on jokes in the green room, which some headliners are like, I'm tired, but he was like, tell me about your life. And like I was like telling you different things. He's like, what if you did a bit about this? Like he was like actively trying to like write jokes for me, which was like super cool.
Yeah.
And like Taylor Tomlinson and her opener Dustin Nickerson, they wrote some jokes for me that are appearing in my next Dry Bar special.
Oh, nice.
They're like, hey, we talked about you at brunch. I was like, oh. And they're like, all good things. We wrote some jokes. Do you want to try them out? I was like, yeah,
absolutely.
Let's go. And so actually my closer of my Dry Bar special is a joke Taylor Tomlinson wrote.
Oh, wow.
That like I like tweaked, but she's like, what if you had, she gave me the idea for the premise, and then like we workshopped it there in the green room, and then I went on stage and did it, and she goes, that's actually pretty good. I was like, I know, like, thanks. So I've met some really most major headliners are actually incredibly nice people.
Yeah. I'm one of those guys, I know you probably heard this a bunch of times, that want to try it out. I keep telling, do you know Trey Lamb?
Yeah, Trey's great.
So he's actually coming, he's here soon. He's been on the show a couple times, and now I'm going to have him for the first time in this
new environment
setup. But I always tell him, I want to do it. I just don't know how to put things together. And my question to you is it just, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a comedian funny 24/7?
No.
Or you can be a comedian just when you hit the stage?
I call it, there's 2 different types of funny.
Okay.
There's stage funny and there's party funny.
Okay.
There are people who you're at a party, they're a great hang, they're so funny, but you put them on stage and it just doesn't translate.
Okay.
And there are hilarious people that can get up for an hour and just riff and whatever, that when you go hang out, they are the most boring, unfunny person. It's not 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Like, so there are some people that are both. They're both party and stage funny.
See, because I'm the party funny.
Great.
You know?
But like what I tell people, like when they want to start out, is you write whatever you think is funny. Just write it down, go do it, keep whatever the audience laughs at. So write what you think is funny, keep what they tell you is funny. If they laugh at it, It's funny.
Okay.
And so there's something there. And if they don't laugh at it, either drop it or revise it.
Or yeah.
And that's the sort of thing, like, you'll literally never know until you try it. Like, it's not like you can, like, if we, like, workshopped and wrote a 3-minute set right now, it would be pointless if you never got up and did it.
Yeah.
So, like, I would say, like, listen, I encourage people to try comedy. I also encourage people to quit comedy. I was like, listen, this might not be your thing. You are taking up valuable stage time that other funnier people can take. But, like, bless you for trying. Yeah. Please be a paying patron of this comedy club. Especially, like, I'm in New York, and, like, a lot of people, like, have that, like, moniker, like, I'm a New York comedian. And I was like, some of you are dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, you are. And like I've done, like, I did my first open mic in New York. I don't do open mics in New York. This is going to sound so pretentious of me, because I do this for a living. And most open mics in New York, you pay $5 to get up. You pay $5 to get 5 minutes. And I was like, I did it once, and I was like, never again. It was the most harrowing experience of my life. I literally was like, am I in the Twilight Zone? It was the most, like, insanely, like, hateful, dark, like, I got up there and I was like, y'all need therapy. Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, not all of you are single for a good reason. Like, the things you have said tonight, like, it's so baffling.
Yeah.
But, like, in New York, if you're doing open mics only for other comics. Paying customers don't go. Even free shows for open mics, no one goes to them. Only comics go to them. Which is why I wonder how any comic ever gets good in New York, because other comedians are the worst audience.
Yeah.
Because we are on our phones thinking of our set, and we don't care what you're doing. And we go, oh, good one. Hey, fist bump. Like we don't care. But, like, here at Wise Guys, like, when I got started, 200, there were a couple times where it hit 300 people, paying customers in the crowd. Like, the Wise Guys downtown location was full, and now it's like 100, 150.
Yeah.
But, like, that is a godsend in other scenes where they're like, you have an audience? Like, so, like, for me, the luxury of having an open mic audience here in Utah that pays and shows up, write what you think is funny, keep what they think is funny, try it out, and do it 2 or 3 times, and if you don't like it, quit. Like, like, I always tell people, like, just try it, also just quit. like you don't have to stick
They're both
around.
easy.
like especially, like, if you're not funny, I'm like, you don't have to stick around.
Because I think one of the things that I brought up to Trey when he did the show with us, it was like, we got so used to, and I think, you know how they say you have like a person that inspires you to be funny, whether it's a friend or a family member or whatever. For me, it was my uncle. My uncle would make everybody laugh, and ever since I was a lot younger, right? I was like,
Because you're 41.
Because I'm 41, almost 42,
Almost 42.
almost 42. But I will see him. By the way, do you see that?
Oh, Keith. I love Keith.
We've had Keith on the show too.
I owe my career to Keith.
Yeah. So I would see him doing this, and I'm like, oh, when I obviously how you think as a kid, they're like, oh, when I grow up, I want to do that. I want to make people laugh. And so the show that we had before kind of made me realize that, the way, even before we did the show, like, the way I tell my stories is like, I want people to laugh with me. I want people to laugh at me. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
And so we kind of got used to, or I will say on my side of things, right? I kind of got used to telling my worst stories. Like, I have high blood pressure, right?
Yeah.
Like, I ended up going to the hospital. I thought I was having a heart attack, and the way I told it here, I do it in a funny way. Like, my father became like a character. My father's in Mexico, and he became like a character on the show because how he would talk to me and how I portrayed him to be on the show. But I can do that all day long. I just don't see me. I just don't know. Like I told you, I don't know how to put it together.
Yeah, like, are you looking for advice right now?
I mean,
if you want,
I'll take dating advice. I'll take living advice.
I never give unsolicited comedy advice. I always ask, because I remember my first month of doing comedy, I was standing in the open mic line where we would stand in for hours, rain or shine, to wait to sign up to hopefully get 3 minutes. And there was this one comedian who was trying to give me advice, and he goes, "You got to trust me. I've been doing this 25 years." And I said, "And sir, we are in the same line."
Yeah.
And he stopped giving me advice
Yeah.
and never gave me advice. I have been at this less than 6 years. I've been doing it full time for over a year and a half. And
now he opens for you.
No, God, no. But it's been my main source of income for 3 years now. Like,
oh, nice.
But I only give advice. I'm like, can I give you advice if you want it?
For
If
sure,
you don't want it,
absolutely.
I'll throw it away.
Absolutely.
Yeah. How I write stories, because I'm a storyteller, is I just type it all out. Every single detail, just in chronological order. And then I time it. I just see how long it takes me to tell that story. Usually just my natural storytelling thing is like, I'll just write a 5-minute story. And what I try and do is I take that 5 minutes and I go, how do I get that down to 90 seconds? And I just take the bullet points. What's the most important and essential thing? And I get it to that 90 seconds and I time it out and I go, what's the 90 seconds? And then I have to go, okay, there are no jokes here yet. This is all just like a skeleton. So the meat are the jokes. So like, where can I throw in an analogy? Where can I throw in like a list where it's like I like da-da-da-da-da-da punchline. Like, and then I try and pepper in, because the story itself might be interesting or amusing, and then I throw in where the joke should be, and then it usually comes out to about 2:20, 2:30, and then I just rehearse that over and over again, and then try it out at an open mic. But like, I do all of that before I even try it at an open mic. And now, like, I've been doing it enough where I understand my storytelling rhythm. Like, I will start writing the story with the jokes. But when I started, I was a theater teacher, so I was like, I know how to write and tell a story. I don't necessarily know how to make people laugh every 15 seconds. But I can tell an engaging story. Like, my students, when I would do my storytelling unit, I would tell a 5-minute story. They were captivated. And there were, like, 2 moments where they would laugh, but they were just engaged. But being engaged doesn't mean anything if they're not laughing if you're at a comedy club. Like, there's a joke I have in my set where it's towards the end where I build this long silence so that the release is just like huge at the end.
Nice.
But like, you don't want a lot of silence. You can use silence, but you don't want a lot of silence. So then I would be like, hey, how do I make sure there's a joke like every 20 seconds? How do I make them laughing every 10 to 15 seconds? Like, what am I doing? And I'm peppering in little things. And some of the jokes don't land and some of the jokes do. But that's kind of how I do it, where I was a storyteller. Like, I'm not an observationalist where it's like, have you ever noticed that posters only come and, like, that's not me. Yeah. Like, I'm not Jerry Seinfeld where he talks about the Pop-Tart. Like, I'm very much like, okay, when I was in 5th grade, here's what happened. And, like, I tell a whole detailed story, but I try and, like, what I would do is I would just write the whole story, didn't try to be funny, just got all the essential detail. Then I distilled it down to, like, bullet points. What are the most important parts of the story? And then I was like, what could be funny here? And then I throw in the jokes, and then I try it out.
It's funny you say that, because I do it. I do the exact thing that you just described about 2 or 3 times a week with the clips from the podcast. Yeah. Because we like if I just make a clip out of me asking you, hey, how do you put it together, and we just finish when you stop right there. Yeah. I condense that into 1 minute. Yeah. Like everything, right? And even if I make it and it's a minute and 30 seconds, then I start watching it over and over again. I'm like, okay, I can deal without this. I can deal without that. I don't need to be saying that. I don't need to be going, like, let's get rid of that. You know what I mean? So then I go, like you said, I just did one which I was like from 5 minutes down to 60, and I'm talking about even 50 seconds because I throw my song out there for like 10 seconds. So it's like very condensed and very straight to the point. And also knowing, following you for as long as I have, I will say now that you mention it, I am also a storyteller because and I hate the fact that I do this, but I'm the kind of guy that I go, somebody asks me a question, and instead of me saying like, oh, well, I did this, like, I usually go way back to a point when it's not even necessary. I just go, listen, when I was born, and they're like, what?
We are the same.
Yeah.
I do the same thing. I was like, I can't just do a yes or no question. Yeah. I have to be like, well, to understand me, you have to know in 8th grade. Like, that's where I go. Yeah. So, no, I totally get it. Like, I used to teach the stand-up comedy writing classes when I was in Raleigh, And there are like 9-10 different like styles of comedy. Like the main ones are observational, where you're like, have you ever noticed that, whatever. And then there's anecdotal, which is storytelling. Those are like 85 to 90% of like most comics. And then there's these obscure like little ones like prop comedy, musical comedy, political comedy, satire, like anti-comedy, like. But most people are either an observationalist or they're a storyteller. And we're both storytellers.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate when I do that because sometimes I'm telling a story and I'm like, wait, why am I still talking?
Oh, I have done that twice on this podcast. I'm like, let's try and circle this back. Jen Psaki.
All he asked me is how I was doing.
Yeah, and I was just like, well, the Bergen City Regional Hospital. No, so I'm definitely like, I get lost in my own thoughts. That's the ADHD of it all. Like, have you seen Mike Birbiglia's comedy special, My Girlfriend's Boyfriend?
Mm-mm.
I
know who he is, but I haven't seen
He starts a story,
okay,
and then he goes on a tangent to explain a detail. And then in that tangent, he starts telling a second story. And then in that story, there's a tangent that needs to happen, so he starts telling a third story. And he does that, and then he goes back to finish story 3. He goes back to finish story 2. Goes back. Nice. But it's all this big plan out. But he played on his own ability and desire to, and like inclination to go on tangents and ramble and tell these long-winded stories, but he funneled that into this really cool writing process for his special. That's how it turned out.
That is so awesome. And so when you do it, when you go and you start reading or saying your story out loud and timing it, are you alone in the house? Do you leave alone? Do you?
No, I have a roommate, but I talk to myself. I'll just turn on my phone timer, and I'll just read the Google Doc out loud, like taking pauses like I'm a normal storytelling it, and just so I can kind of like, how much time does this take? Like I try not to build in like pauses for laughter. I do now because I'm, but when I started, it was just like
one after the other.
Yeah, because so many people when they start, they will read it out loud to themselves, and it'll be 3 minutes, but then they get on stage, and if there's laughs, they didn't build in time, so they don't get to finish their story.
Okay.
So when I started, I always shot for 2 to 2.5 minutes was my goal. That's why like my storytelling process got down to like 2:20, 2:30, is because in case I got big laughs, because they give you a 3 minute, and at the end of the 3 minutes, they call you off stage. So like I didn't want to be called off stage. I wanted to finish my joke. And so I always planned on shortchanging my set. So that way, if I got big laughs, I had the time built in. And so like when I started, that was that funnel process of just like getting it down to it. And then once the story was good, if I got like weekend spots, or I was doing a showcase, or I was doing 10 minutes, I go, how can I make this 2.5 minute story 3 or 4 minutes? And then writing in jokes, being, oh, I can do a callback to this other joke. And then I start piecing together my set, where like I have a closer that I've been working on for years, but it has like 6 callbacks in the story. I'm not to the point where I'm like, this is ready to be like taped and like put out there, but like I've been slowly working on it because I'm like, oh, that story, and then I think of another good callback. I'm like, oh, I have this story. So like Fortune Feemster on her first special, she told so many stories. It was sweet and salty, but her last story had callback to every single story she did, and it pays off. And like I worked with her the weekend, a few weekends before she filmed, so like she was like talking through a joke. She goes, I need to cut this, I need to do that, and so like she was like talking through the process with me, which was like so cool. And then to like watch it each night as she tweaks things, and then like when I saw the special on Netflix, it just totally worked. Where I'm like in that process of like, hey, now how do I pepper in these fun details? How do I do callbacks or like tangents and make it a cohesive unit? But definitely when you start, especially as a storyteller, find something really interesting, and then like just cut it down and try and make it funny.
Do you adapt do you adapt? Is it a thing to do when you adapt your comedy to whoever you're opening for?
No.
Or you as you? No,
and that's why I was so great, because I do clean comedy. And so I could, in theory, open for anyone, because they can't be like, hey, like, don't swear. Because, like, some headliners are like, we don't want you to curse, or we don't want you to do this. Or they're like, hey, I talk a lot about sex, don't talk about sex, or whatever.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I talk about the Babysitter's Club book series. Like, you're fine. You are good. All right. We talk about Stacy and Dawn. We're fine. Like, you don't need to worry about. If you have a whole bit about the Babysitter's Club, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Like, because that's all I got. So No, I don't adapt because I don't have to. And Whitney said it one time. She goes, the great thing about you, and this was like years ago, she goes, we have absolutely no overlap in material. And she goes, so I don't have to worry about anything you do potentially being something I would do. So no, and when I headline, most of the time my shows are listed as clean. So I just tell them like, hey, like, they're like, well, what's clean? I was like, well, what's your definition of clean? And they sit there and I was like, think cleaner than that.
Oh, wow.
And they're like, oh. I was like, yeah, like, for me, if the show is billed as PG, like, don't say fuck. Yeah. Like, I'll say it in my real life. Like, I'm assuming we can say it on this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Hell shit, damn ass. Gotta cut them all, bitch. Like, I didn't say them all.
All these fucking people here, they're freaking out.
Yeah, no, but when I'm on stage, if the show's billed as PG, because I have a dry bar credit, so sometimes clubs will be like, or like I do like corporate events, those you have to be clean. Colleges, they're like, you can do whatever you want. I was like, no, I can't. No, I can't. I do clean because I did one 9/11 joke and they didn't like it. Like, okay. Like, because and it was even a throwaway joke. I was like, I love 5th grade. It was so magical. It was my favorite year of school. I loved so much. I mean, it was the year of 9/11. But other than that, it was a great year, magical year.
Everybody,
like, and they're like, oh. And I was like, oh, guys, stop it. That's the most edgy material you'll get tonight. Like, let's not complain. No, so I don't adapt myself. I don't even adapt to the room. That sounds very egotistical and like narcissistic, but like I should the open mic and like the crowd was like giving like the dumbest jokes, like when someone talks about like, I got fucked in the ass and they're like, ah, and I was like, you guys don't know comedy. So then I get up there and I just do my thing and I go a million miles per hour and I start twerking and they eat it up. And like I did that at the end. I did a shimmy, a twerk, and then a Naruto run off the stage, and they loved it. But like, no, like I just do my thing. Yeah. I'm confident enough in myself that I'm like, I can win any room over. Having headlined, being asked to do an hour of comedy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I've been asked to do an hour of comedy for a literacy fundraiser in Indiana. I'm confident in my ability to do well anywhere. Like, I don't worry. I started in Utah. I moved to the South. Yeah. I live in New York. I can handle any crowd.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's
like,
right.
I don't... Yeah. I've seen it all. Honestly, I do worse in extremely, like, liberal blue rooms. Even though I don't have anything edgy, for whatever reason, conservative rooms, I think they overcompensate their laugh because I'm this gay guy that they're like, they weren't expecting.
Well, you're gay?
Yeah, super.
I knew it. I follow him.
Yeah, so, but, like, it's just like, I don't tweak my act. Yeah. I don't need to. I feel like I'm funny how I am, and I don't have to change who I am.
Is it like is there a stigma to be a comedian in Utah and having to be clean?
Yeah, well, there's some comedians that are like anti, like, I will never do clean. I don't want to do dry bar. I was like, then don't. But like, you don't have to talk about like the grossest, dumbest, unfunny stuff. You have 15 minutes on your masturbation habits. So, no one cares. Literally, actually,
wait, someone has my bit?
Yeah, people would rather hear about the Magic Tree House Club. Like, they would rather hear about like the Boxcar Children. Yeah. Like they don't want to hear that. But like, there are some people that are so anti, and there is a stigma like people are like, oh, I'm not a clean comedian, and it's like, girl, grow up. I'm funny.
Yeah.
Like, I started as a gay clean comedian in Utah. If I can do well here, I can do well anywhere.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Is it obviously I wouldn't know. Is it harder to do clean comedy?
People say. I don't. I think it's easier. I started comedy and I put very clear parameters because I was a middle school teacher. Yeah. I'm also gay in Utah, so I'm not going to lose my job over a hobby.
Yeah.
So I was like, I will only do clean. I won't swear. Mm-hmm. I won't do anything sexual. I won't do innuendos. And I don't do drugs or alcohol. So I'm like,
but when you're off the stage,
we're in the alleyway. Like, no, but like for me, like I started with that clear barometer, and so I didn't even like consider that sort of material. So for me, it started out really easy because I knew I already had like limits, and I just wrote what I wanted to write. And it was kind of refreshing because so many open mic comedians think that comedy is being the most crass. It's being the most dark and edgy and like, oh, you can't say that, I get up on stage and be like, I'm a mechanic. Can't you tell by my voice? And then I move on, and they're like, okay. Like, and I I don't understand the fascination about being the most edgy or being the most like controversial. I don't want a crowd to go, oh, when I perform. I want them to go, ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand that drive. I find writing clean so much easier. The average comedian says clean is so much harder. It's because they rely on easy swear words. Fuck is inherently funny because K-sounding sounds are funnier. So when you, like, if you were to choose a random animal and you say kangaroo, that's innately funnier than saying bird. Skunk is inherently funnier sounding than possum. Because that K sound, we register, like, I've, like, studied, I read the books, I listen to, like, all, like, the things, but, like, people rely on saying fuck, and people going, yeah. Or, like, then you know, like, I did it in the ass, and everyone's like, bah! Like, I don't get that. That's not funny to me. What's funny is doing the unexpected, and I think that's why I started, like, when I started off so well, because I was so different than everyone else. Like, I talked about being a teacher, and I was like, these kids are so dumb. Like, and I just, like, would tell teacher stories, and people were like, it was, like, honestly, like, a breath of fresh air against all these guys who are talking about their dating life when, you know, not one of them is going on a date. They are all getting ghosted. They are all meeting people off Craigslist. Like, nothing about these men scream, I'm actually successful at dating. But the audience gets tired and so, like, for me, being different, being like this thing that talked about this thing. I'm a creature of the abyss. Like, I talked about Twilight and, like, just all that sort of stuff, that it helped me stand out in a different way, that, like, I found it easier to write because I had a very, very specific and clear point of view, and I was so unique and different. I was one of the only gay people when I started. There's now more LGBTQ people, but, like, when I started, like, I was usually the only queer person on any open mic, on any show, and that helped me stand out because I was different. And so a lot of these comedians fall into this trope that they see, like, so many of these edgelords on TikTok and whatever that, you know, do the most foul and infernal, which whatever, like, Anthony Jeselnik is brilliant, but not everyone is Anthony Jeselnik. And they try to write like Anthony Jeselnik. They try to write like Tony Hinchcliffe or Joe Rogan or like Bill Burr or whatever. Like, but I'm like, you're not that. Don't write like them because you're not them. Like, people want to be like Dave Chappelle and, like, pontificate on stage. I'm like, bitch, you're dumb as hell. Like, you can't teach me shit. Like, stop sitting on the stool on stage and just stand up and tell a fucking joke.
But how do you fight it if you have that? Again, that person inspires you, right? Like, that person, like, for example, me, and I know I've been saying this a lot lately, but, like, I used to play drums, and the way I play drums is how I learn from my heroes.
Yeah, I get that, but stand-up is a little bit different than music, because you can be inspired and, like, write your own, like, music that, like, you know, like, one of my friends, she loves Sarah Bareilles, and a lot of her stuff, she gets compared to Sarah Bareilles a lot, and she's now, like, but, like, she's good, and she has her own, like, distinct sound, but, like, I guess that's why, for me, like, I didn't have, like, a quote-unquote, like, comedy hero, which I think helped me, like, just, like,
to develop
my own voice,
character,
because there are some comedians that, like, do you know who Mark Normand is?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there are at least 3 to 4 Mark Normans in every scene, or Mark Norman wannabes. They do his same things. Hey, what about that? They do the exact same thing as him, and it's like, you're not original. You're never gonna get noticed. You're never gonna get put on shows because you're a bad copycat of a far more successful comedian. Why are you letting people look at you and go, that's Mark Normand but shittier? Why do you want that moniker? Do something else. Be yourself on stage. And, like, some people are like, well, like, I'm not that interesting. I was like, then you're not. And lean into that. Lean into not being an interesting person. Like, I don't like it when people, like, mimic or copycat things. Like, I have jokes that I have retired because I see a far more successful comedian do a very similar joke that I'm like, great. It's not unique, which is why I tell stories from my life, because no one, like, I have deaf parents. I was raised Mormon. I went on a Mormon mission. I'm a homosexual. I was a middle school teacher in Utah. While there are people who have certain categories of those, no one has all of those. And so that helps my comedic voice be so distinct and unique, is that I don't have to worry about, like, like double dipping with other comedians. Like I had a joke about how I believed Warren G. Harding was the first gay president, and I had this whole bit about it. And then Christy Stefano has a way funnier bit about the first gay president, and I was like, all right, throwing that material out because it's not unique.
Yeah,
like like I want to do things that people go, I've never seen that before. Like I popped off on TikTok a few years ago, and I popped off again this year with my sign language jokes because I'm signing while I'm talking, and people haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Like my TikToks from like, they're almost 3 years old now, but like one has over 4 million views, one has over 3 million views. I have like 8 different videos of like over 900,000 views, and they're all my sign language jokes because it was different. It was unique. It helped me stand out. And so
I do remember that bit.
Yeah,
that was one of the ones I was like, "Oh, this guy's hilarious."
Yeah, so but it's like you don't see other people doing sign language on stage, which help distinguish my voice and my stage presence, and people remember me because like, oh, that's the guy that throws in sign language. It's not the crux of my act, but like it's a few minutes in there. So like that for me is like when comedians start like writing or like mimicking other comedians, it's like, all right, at first I guess if you're wanting to learn how to write jokes, go for it. But I say just start with your own thing. Like I learned that method of my storytelling thing was something I came up with. Like I was just like, I want to tell stories, but I don't know how. And I just would listen to different podcasts, and I pieced together and made my own plan of how to do comedy. And I think that's why I'm a little successful. Is like I took the things they did well and I adapted them to me. I know several comics that like they refuse to read a comedy writing book. They refuse to listen to comedy writing podcasts. And I was like, they're like, well, I don't want to write like everyone else. I was like, you take from the good and you leave the bad. Yeah. Like you can get inspired by like, oh, that's a good writing technique, or hey, that's a good writing pattern, or hey, that's a good practice to do when you're writing or editing. Like you can learn things without being a copycat. Yeah. And so if a comedian doesn't, for me, like if they're established, it's one thing, but if they're like an up and comer and they're not like studying comedy, if they're not watching comedy specials to try and figure out why that's funny, you're falling behind, because there are comedians like me who are studying comedy. Like every week I watch a stand-up comedy special and I figure out, why did that joke work? Was it his persona? Was it the verbiage? Was it the cadence? Was it the pausings? Like I try and analyze and break down comedy. It's like film tape for like football players. Like analyzing the opponent's film. Like I'm analyzing this to be like, okay, that worked for them. Maybe I should try that style of like pausing, or maybe that sequence of jokes of rapid fire. Maybe like I'd like just try and take from anything, like, so, and like make it my own, but I don't like rely on one set way of doing things or one person that I emulate. I kind of like spread the wealth.
Is the open mics here at Wise Guys, are they clean? Or they
No,
not?
you can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want.
I mean, like within reason. Like here's the thing. The thing about comedy is, if you are so dumb and you say like the most offensive, the most inappropriate, and you alienate the audience, and you alienate like the other comics and like you probably won't be invited back. Like if you're up there just like, and especially if you're like dissing on the club or you're dissing on like the owner, like if you're doing something dumb like that, you probably won't be. But for the most part, like you get up there, like I sit back with some other comics, and when people get up there and we're like, good God, have I gone insane? What is this? Why did someone think this is funny? Like I was like, where was their internal editor? Like why was there not like? But you can say in basically whatever you want. I don't want to say like
for sure.
Ryan says you can, but it's like there isn't content restriction. The thing that they tell everyone is just be funny, and the rest will sort itself out. And I think too many people get caught up in what they can and can't say anymore, and it's like just worry about being funny.
One of the things that I remember from listening to Keith Almighty is that he was the first person that had, and even when I watch his clips every now and then. By the way, I missed him last week.
Oh, and up in Ogden.
Because he was, so I have this thing with a bunch of friends and podcasters where every UFC night we go to this bar, and one of the podcasters is a DJ too. So he plays there, so we go there, we know everybody, whatever. So I feel bad because
remember the story tangents you were talking about earlier?
See what I'm saying? I could have just continued my story.
I love it.
Listen, when I started this 5 years ago, no, and then
7 minutes later, and so there I was, 1984, and
my parents got divorced. No, but I convinced a friend that lives up north, and I said, hey, and I sent her a clip. I said, listen, this is the actual owner of Wise Guys, and he's gonna be performing. And I don't know how long it's been, right?
I don't know how. It's been several years.
So I'm like, we gotta go, and she was like, okay, and like she instantly was like, I got my tickets, and I go, okay, well, give me a couple days, and then I'll get him. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I haven't bought my tickets. I was like, oh shit, I haven't bought my tickets. And then one of my friends like, you coming to Saturday night? And I'm like, oh shit. So I had to be like, hey, I'm not going. She's like, you asshole. I was like, I'm sorry. So I missed him, but he's one, like, watching his clips, and he was one of the ones that I was like, oh, he is. There's two things that caught my attention. He is clean and hilarious. And another thing is that he wasn't, just like you, he wasn't afraid to make fun of the fact that he's LDS. Well, he is LDS.
Yeah.
Right? And he has a bit, an old bit, I would say, about being LDS. And when I watch it again, I'm like, this is genius. It's hilarious. And he doesn't say one bad word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and that's the thing is, like, a lot of people, what they don't realize, like, when I do like my hour show, and like they're like, that was so funny. I was like, you notice how I didn't swear? And they're like, oh. And I was like, I didn't do one sex joke. Like, oh. I was like, I didn't talk about drugs or alcohol. And they're like, oh. Like, you can do it. You can be very funny with that, but you also can be very funny and swear.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think like the only funny people are the people who don't swear, and the people like, you can talk about drugs for an hour and be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like that. I just get frustrated with like a lot of comedians who are thinking they like diss on clean comedy because they think, oh, like, I'm a church comedian. I was like, what church is hiring me? Like, not a fucking one.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it if there's a church out there listening. But no, like, for me, like, I just get upset when people be like, you can't be funny and clean. I was like, no, you can be very funny and very clean. Like, Fortune Feimster special is, I think both of them are mostly clean.
yeah.
And she's just funny. She talks about her mom, like, being like, I have never been to Hooters. And it's like, Mom, you took me there for my 14th birthday. Like, and she goes, I have never. Like, she just talks about her family life growing up. And you don't even, like, realize, like, oh, this is clean. Because she's just being herself, and she's just naturally funny. And, like, with Keith, like, poking fun of himself being LDS and stuff, like, if you're funny, people don't care if you're clean or not.
Yeah.
If you're funny. And that's kind of like,
God, I wish you would do it again. I'll totally go. In fact, I got someone that it's maybe giving me tickets to do something on Saturday. But if that doesn't happen, I'll go up to Ogden and see you.
Perfect.
That'd be nice. That'd be good. So you're coming up with a special.
My second dry bar special. It's called The Shape of Wear.
Nice.
Because I wear shapewear on stage, and it's a play on the movie The Shape of Water.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm very excited about it. I filmed it last May, and I've been ready for it to come out. I saw the preview of it last year, and I was like, great, let's put it.
So it's being recorded that long.
So they record. Most people's dry bar specials take 6, 8, 12
really?
months to come
Yeah,
out.
it's funny you say that because, like I say, he'll be back and talk about it. But Trey kind of mentioned, he put it on his socials, and I'm like, hey, you should come and talk about it. And he goes, well, it's
probably not gonna come out for another
probably
year.
like 8 months. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so like it depends on their like filming schedule. Like they have so many sock pod. Like the fact that they haven't even finished putting out all the ones they filmed spring of 2023, and they filmed fall of 2023, and they filmed spring of 2024. So there is a backlog because they don't film over the summer, but they still release things over the summer.
So where did this drive-by come from? Like all of a sudden, I started hearing over and over.
It started
again.
about 6-7 years ago, based out of Provo, Angel Studios. They wanted to provide alternative, clean comedy to people because they noticed that like there was a want for comedy, but like people didn't want to hear about people's masturbation habits, and like they wanted stuff that they could maybe watch with their kids, and so. Dry bar comedy, dry bar as in it's a bar that doesn't serve alcohol. So that was kind of the influx. And the first couple seasons, they filmed 45-minute specials. And then they pivoted to 20 to 25-minute specials, which I think was genius because they were able to get more comedians' content out there. And people aren't going to sit down and watch a 45-minute comedy special of someone they don't know.
Yeah.
They'll watch a few minutes, and if they like it, they're like, it's only 15 more minutes. Like, it's only a 20-minute clip. Like, let's just finish the thing. And so it was very smart of them to pivot. And then it's go and get gangbusters. They Their YouTube channel exploded. They have stuff. They put stuff on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and so many comedians have had stuff go viral. Like I had my, they posted one of my clips from my first Dry Bar special that I filmed in 2019 last month on my birthday, and it's now at 1.5 million views.
Is that Vertical Collapse?
Yeah.
I saw that name, and I remember because you have. I mean, I don't want. Yeah, so I don't want to give anything away, but you have it on one.
Nancy Pelosi stole my thing,
but you have it in one of your bits when you had an argument with somebody like out on the road, and then you did the thing, and I go, and as soon as I read the name, I go, oh, that is hilarious.
Yeah, because it's a true story that happened. I almost got hit by a car in an intersection. They weren't looking. They were literally looking out the passenger window and went through a stop sign while I'm in the crosswalk. And I was just like, hey, watch where you're driving. I was like, I didn't say it like that. I was like, hey, watch where you're driving. I was like, the vertical claps were necessary, okay? And it's truly what happened. And then he truly DM'd me later on Instagram. And I wish I would have screenshotted it before he deleted it, but I didn't. I just was it was like, hey, we had an incident at the crosswalk today. I recognize you from Wise Guys Comedy Club. You're a very funny comedian. I'm so sorry I didn't mean to hit you.
Oh, okay.
That truly happened.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? I did, and I remember I was at actually Wise Guys at a comedy show, and I was showing people. I was like, look at this DM, and they're like, that's crazy. And then like an hour later, I was like, oh, I should screenshot it. He had deleted the message. I don't know, but I thought it was the funniest thing.
Call in right now.
But I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was fun. So my first special came out. I was a year into comedy. I just asked Keith, being like, hey, what's it gonna take to get a Dry Bar special? I was thinking like a year or two down the road, because it was like just after I hit a year in comedy that I was like, hey Keith, I've been at this a year. I'm wondering, like, I was like trying to set like a
comes in with like light behind him.
Yeah,
in a row.
I was trying to set like a long-term goal. Like, what do I need to work towards? Yeah. And I was like, hey, like, you know, I saw John Deming, who's a local comic here. I'm like, he got a Dry Bar special in the fall. I'm wondering what it would take for me to get one. And he goes, I got an opening in 6 weeks.
So wait, so he takes care of that too?
Yeah,
that's part of his thing. Mm-hmm. That's part of his kingdom.
Yeah.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah.
Why does it have another name?
He was hired as the booker because he knows so many people in comedy.
Oh, okay.
And so at the time, I was just like, hey, like, I was just like, because I was thinking I need to like film a set, or he needs to see me do 20 minutes, like like I was thinking there was gonna be like somebody with pose, and he goes, no, you're ready, I believe in you. And then he's like, let's go back to the computer, and he's like, all right, and he gave me the date, and he goes 6 weeks, and I was like, can I have time like the weekend before to like open for someone so I can run my 20 minutes? He goes, yeah, absolutely. And like, it was just like, thank you. Like, it was insane. And I lost my voice the week before. It was the whole thing.
Oh, no way.
And I had to do shows with a hoarse voice. It was insanity.
Everybody's like, he's not gay. Look at his deep ass voice.
Hey guys. Yeah. So
where'd you go?
Yeah. So then I filmed that, and then about a year and a half ago, like last January or February, I had asked Keith, I was like, hey, like, what would it take to film another special? And he goes, oh, we'll think about it. And I was like, no worries. Like, I just was like, once again, like thinking long term. And then like a few weeks later, he goes, do you want to film in May? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. He goes, great. He's like, we'll put it on the calendar. And I was like, thank you. Like,
that's crazy. I didn't know that. So
that's why I said he made my career. Like, he gave me all of my Wise Guy stuff. He gave me my Dry Bar stuff. Like,
wait, so
I owe Keith my career.
So there's 3 here.
And then 2 in Vegas.
2 in Vegas. Mm-hmm. Wasn't he open one in Idaho? Or
there have been discussions, like rumors.
Okay. Well, because I posted it because
he wanted to build in Boise, but you know, there's been some snafus. But he books rooms in like Idaho Falls and like Rexburg. Like, he texted me and he was like, hey, do you want to do Rexburg or whatever? And I was like, yeah.
Oh wow,
great.
But
it didn't work out with my schedule. But yeah,
one thing that I love to hear about Keith is how my podcasting heroes and comedians how no one has one bad thing to say about him.
It's because Keith wants you to be successful, even the shittiest comedians, because he wants good comedians so that he can put them on the stage on the weekends. Like, he doesn't want to have to depend on the same stable of comedians. Like, when I got started, I just asked him, I was like, hey, how do I get weekend spots? He goes, like, I opened for Jacob Lee, and it went well. And then a month later, I opened up for Alex Valuto in Ogden, and it went well. And I came by the club after to just, like, hang out, and he goes, hey, like, Noelle, his wife, runs the Ogden room, and he goes, Noelle texted me saying you did great, you crushed it. I was like, oh, thank you. He's like, you'll be getting more spots. Like, he wants comedians to do well, because good comedians beget more good comedy, and the more good comedians there are, even like bar shows, the better the bar shows are. People had a good time at a comedy show at a bar, they're like, maybe we should go to the club. Like, good comedy begets more good comedy. And so he wants comedians to be successful. There were several times, like, before an open mic, he'd pull all the comedians into the green room, and he would be like, if you want weekend spots, here's what I need to hear from you. Like, he told everyone exactly what they needed to do, and some comedians were like, I'm not doing that. It's like, then you're not going to get weekend work. Like, he has every right to run his club however he wants, but also there are headliners that come through that are like, I demand a clean opener. And so when people are like, I don't know why Keith wants me to be clean, it's like, it's not necessarily him. It's sometimes the headliner requests that. So, but if you can be clean funny, he can put you on any show.
Now, is he the, obviously I don't know about this, is he the only owner that happens to be a comedian?
No, there are other. I've done clubs where some of the club owners are comedians.
Because once again, one of the things that I've heard of him is like he was a
comedian first.
He's a comedian first, so he knows how the business runs. But I'm talking about comedians and podcasters. But I'm talking about Brendan Shaw, Brian Callen, Norman, Whitney Cummings. I mean, Bert Kreischer. Like, no one has. And I tell you what, I know that I make fun of myself because he's done the show once. And by the way, more props to him, because when I asked him, I was just going to Wise Guys here, and I went and I saw him, and I remember because my friend took me to, and that's where I got that album, and I said, oh, that's the owner. And then instantly in my head goes, how cool would it be, just like I still do, how cool would it be to have him on the show? And that was when I was doing it with my friend. And so I flat out just went to him and I said, hey, Keith, I have this and that, and I would like you to be on our show. And he said, we're Wise Guys. He said, you want to do it here? And I was like, my friend and I were like, get the fuck out of here. And so we actually have our only episode that we've done with him. We did it at Wise Guys, just right over there at the main lobby. Yeah. We sat there. I have one of my friends did the whole camera and audio, and then we just sat with him and it was a blast. I mean, it was just like, for the longest time, my friend and I would talk about it, and it was like our favorite episode, like hands down.
Yeah, no, he's great. Like, he wants you to be successful. Like, I will never say a bad thing about Keith. Yeah, like, sure. Why would I? Like, like, he truly wants people to be successful, and he's been nothing but good to me in my career.
And I know that he's not gonna waste his time coming here. Where I'll have him again. God damn it, I know I will. And going back to the things that people have to say, I have a list on my phone, and I want to tell him when he gets here, of all the things and who has said it. And I have a list to say, hey, these people say this person said this person said this. Because it's just, for me to know that there's people out there that are well-known comedians are talking about the owner of our comedy club here, to me, that's big.
Oh, it's known across the country. Wise Guys is one of the best clubs in the country. Like, Chris D'Elia, before he was canceled, he would do theater tours and then do an 8-show weekend at Wise Guys because he loved Wise Guys so much. He could fill Kingsbury Hall in one night, but he would rather do Wise Guys 8 shows because he loved it. Yeah. And but there were other comics that always I always make sure Wise Guys is on my stop. Yeah. Like just because he's known, and like the way the room is set up is unconventional to most comedy clubs. Yeah. He has those bench seats. So everyone's facing the same way. Most comedy clubs seat you sideways, which I've never understood, where we're sitting across from each other, and the stage is to my left, your right. So people have to turn sideways. Oh. That's how every improv is set up.
That sucks.
Or they're on little tea tables. But he does these benches so he can fit more people, and everyone's facing the same way. It's easier for servers to get through because he has clear aisles. Like like the way he set up his club is not only like the comedian's perspective, like he has this giant stage with a ramp and like all the things you need on the stage, but that he also like set up the room so that the audience enjoys it. And I was like, people don't complain because like the benches are 6 seats wide. So to get out, you only have to go over potentially 2 other people in either direction. Whereas with tea tables or like with the long spindly rows, like you have to like shuffle out, and you're not sitting next to your person, you're sitting across from them. So you're sitting next to complete strangers on both sides, which is weird. And then you have to turn sideways to watch the show. Like most comedy clubs are poorly set up. But he does the right way of facing everyone towards the stage. And
Is Ogden like that too?
Yeah,
I've only been to
all wise guys are set up the same way, and
even Vegas.
It makes the most sense. And I've done so many clubs where I'm like, why do you seat this way? Like, oh, that's just how we've always sat. I was like, but the experience would be so much better and easier for your servers and like easier for the customers and like I've just never the way he set up a club to me is brilliant. And like the way that he like added the lobby, which had a small stage, and then he added the Rickles room, and then he has Jordan Landing. Like he's trying to like cultivate a scene where like he does a bucket mic every Tuesday. He doesn't have to. Like there's no cover at the door. It's a free show for everybody. He doesn't have to do that, but he's trying to cultivate the comedy scene so that the comics are better, so that they can be more comics on the weekends. So, no, I think the way, being a comedian himself, he has set up just such a great, like, system.
I've never been to Ogden.
Ogden's my favorite room in the country.
Is it really? So what determines who goes where?
Tickets. The downtown location seats like 375. It's also the downtown location, so it's a little more like prestigious. Yeah. It's a much bigger stage. It also has a small room that seats 60 to 80. Then the Jordan Landing seats close to 300, 280. It's a big cavernous room, and then Ogden seats about 180. So like big names are going to go to Salt Lake. It's the biggest room. It also is set up where they do 2 shows a night on Fridays and Saturdays. Yeah. So the kitchen is big enough, and there's enough servers and staff to handle that. So like that's the A room. The B room is Jordan Landing, and the C room is Ogden. But the C room is the best room. Yeah. And he said that too. Like I'm recording my second album this weekend there, and low ceilings, lots of metal, exposed brick, so the sound just ricochets. And 180 people are crammed because he does the bench seating. They're crammed in there, but not in a way that they're uncomfortable, but that way like everyone is just in there, and you feel like when that room explodes, you feel like a king. It's my favorite room in the country. Like I prefer it over the Wise, because even the downtown room, it's so cavernous, big ceilings, and then so just sound gets eaten up in space. The Ogden room, it feels like an old school comedy club, very low ceiling. Everything is just like in there, and I love it. It's my favorite room.
Wow. Do you suffer? Do you go? Because you're tall.
No, I clear the ceiling. No, it's not like it's hitting my head, okay. But like it's just a lower ceiling where like the Ogden room, I want to say the ceiling's 10 feet, 11 feet. Salt Lake, I think it's close to 20.
Yeah.
16 feet.
Yeah.
Jordan Landing's the same way.
Yeah.
There's these big cavernous rooms, and just the sound just disappears, where in the Ogden it just bounces, and they have the brick and the metal. There's no curtains. It's just like the sound just explodes. Nice. And so when a joke crushes an Ogden, you're like, I am the king of the world. Like, it's the coolest feeling. I remember my first weekend there opening for Alex Voluto. And I did a 7-minute set, and I was like, "That's the best darn comedy set anyone's ever done."
Someone
ever.
recorded that,
like I was like, yeah, like it just like I felt like on top of the world.
Nice,
I love it.
Nice. Well, I'm excited. I mean, we talk about having you here for an hour. I know you're a busy man.
Yeah. What time is it? Oh, it's literally an hour on the dot. Look at you.
I've been seeing it here.
Oh, you have I was like, wow, you have a really good barometer.
I've been doing this for 5 years. No, I'm excited. Hopefully you want to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you do this every time you're here?
Maybe. Sometimes I'm only in town for a weekend.
I know, I understand.
So like I fly in to do a show, and then like one time I flew in for a 1-night gig here and then flew back out.
Oh, a one-night stand.
Yeah, well, it paid well.
One-night stand-up.
Yep.
Anyway, well, this is your camera. Tell everybody where they can find you, your socials, your special. Obviously, by the time this is out, your Ogden
shows will be over.
Is over.
Yeah.
But
they can follow me Ryan Erwin comedy for YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, That's Ryan Erwin Comedy. And then for Instagram and TikTok, it's at Rye Erwin, RYERWIN. Give me a follow. It'd be great. My Dry Bar special comes out. It'll be on the Dry Bar app. So you have to download the app to watch it. But clips of it will be posted on social media. And then like a year from now, it'll be posted on YouTube in its entirety. But
Nice.
they have it on the app first. So the people who pay for a subscription get like first dibs on it.
Nice.
So,
That's exciting. Well, thank you for making my week.
No
This was
problem.
awesome.
Thanks for having me.
This is awesome. You can catch the show at How Did They Get So Good at Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find me at Ange Cervera on Instagram and Angel Cervera on Facebook. That's my last name, Cervera. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
this has been How Did It Get So Good. Thank you.